When one of my sons was 7 years old, we went to the dentist. And the dentist said, Mr. Hovind, this kid has a cavity. I said, yes, sir, I knew about it. Are you talking about the big one up here or just one in his tooth? He said, well, just the one in his tooth. The only one we can fix. I said, okay, doc, let's fix it. So the dentist said, now listen, son, you're going to have to sit still. Hold real still. Open your mouth real wide. And I'm going to give you a shot. You're going to give me a shot? Yeah, calm down, calm down. I'm going to give you a shot. You're going to drill the bad stuff out and fill it with silver, and you'll be out of here in no time. No problem. Well, he tried to sit still. But when the dentist pulled out that 12-foot needle and poured in 10 gallons of lidocaine, he freaked out, lost control, kicking, screaming. Have you ever seen a kid do that in the dentist chair? Maybe you've done it yourself a time or two. He wants it out of there now. So the doctor called the nurse, and she came in and sat on him, and I sat on him, and the doctor sat on him, and we tried to hold him still, but man, you got to hold real still for that stuff. And finally the dentist was getting all nervous. He said, man, you can't do this. He's got to hold still. I said, Doc, let me take him outside and talk to him for a few minutes. Maybe I can calm him down. We went out to the van, sat in the back seat of the old Chevy van. I said, son, I love you very much. He said, I know, Daddy. I said, son, I told you to sit still. You did not sit still. What happens when you disobey, Daddy? He said, you get a spanking. I said, that's correct. Bend over. And boy, did I give him a spanking. It was a doozy. A few minutes later, the smoke is rising off his hind end, and the tears are coming down his cheeks, and the pearls are coming out of his nostrils. I mean, the whole thing. I said, now listen, son, we're going to go back in the dentist office, and you're going to sit in that chair. And if you wiggle one time, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm just calmly going to take you back out to the van and give you 2 spankings like you just got. And then we're going to go back in the dentist office, and if you wiggle, I'm going to bring you back out and give you 3 spankings in a row like you just got. And we're going to go back and forth all day until I get tired. And I played tennis for years, son. I have an excellent forehand smash, as you well know. I don't think I'll get tired for a while. You know, folks, we went back in the dentist's office. That kid sat in the chair, opened his mouth, grabbed the handles, and didn't move a muscle. I don't think he even breathed for 20 minutes. Boy, the doctor drilled it out, filled it up. We were headed out the door. And the dentist said, Mr. Hovind, come here, please. I thought, uh-oh, what did I do now? He said, listen, Mr. Hovind, I don't know what you said to that kid outside, but I'd like you to work for me around here. I said, no, sir. He said, well, I was with my friends. I said, you can stop right there. I know the rest of the story. When you get with dumb friends, you're likely to do something dumb. How many of you ever did something dumb when you were with somebody who was dumb? You get dumb and dumb together, there ain't no telling what's going to happen. Right? The problem that kid had when he was 13 years old, he was more afraid of his friends than he was of God. See, if he had had a good fear of God, when his friend said, hey, would you want to smoke a cigarette? He'd say, oh man, I can't do that. I don't have a mouth. What do you mean you don't have a mouth? What's that? He said, oh, this ain't mine, this is God's. Plus, I couldn't hold the cigarette anyway. I don't have any hands. These aren't mine, these are God's. I mean, really, if somebody had the right fear of God, he never would have started that habit. And some of you girls are going to get yourself in trouble because you're more afraid of that boyfriend than you are of God. And you're going to be out on a date someday, and he's going to say, I want a kiss. You're going to say, no. He's going to say, yes. You're going to say, no. He will say, yes. And he will be very persistent, I assure you. That's the way they're made. So, what you're going to have to do, girls, the only language they speak, when the boy says, I want a kiss, you say, no. He says, yes. You're going to say, you want a kiss? Yes. Okay. Close your eyes and pucker up. While he's puckered up, take off your shoe. Keep your eyes closed. Rear back. Might as well go way back. If you do it right, you can knock him into next week. When he wakes up, if he wakes up, he will have huge lips out to here. And he will be thinking, for the first time in his teenage life, 2 thoughts at the same time. he will be thinking, wow, that hurt. And he will be thinking, that's the kind of girl I want to marry. If my lips ever go back to normal size. See, the problem some of you guys have at work, you're afraid to stand up for what's right because you're afraid of your friends. They tell their dirty stories and you just stand there. You don't just say them necessarily, but you listen. I walked in to buy a tractor for our church one time. This guy that sold the tractors, huge guy, must have been 6'5" or 7", I don't know, he's giant. Weighed probably 350. Huge guy, owned the company. I walked in ready to spend $5,000 to buy a tractor for our church to mow the grass. And he was on the phone talking to somebody, and he was cussing and screaming and using God's name in vain and slammed the phone down. Turned around, there I was standing at the counter. Check in hand. He'd been cussing up a blue streak, you know. I said, Bill, I don't appreciate you using my Lord's name in vain. I came in here to spend money at your business, and here you are cussing my God, who I love and try to serve. He walked over to the counter, looked down at me. There I was, standing under this giant of a guy. He said, thanks for telling me. He said, I didn't realize it was getting that bad. It's getting bad, isn't it? I said, yeah, Bill, it's real bad. Now, you ought to give your heart to the Lord and get saved. Let Him start cleaning that mess up you got in there. See, the problem some of you guys have, you're more afraid of your friends than you are of God. If we had a bunch of Christians in this country that feared God above all else, we could make a radical change. Our job is to do what's right. God's job is to worry about the details. You just do what's right. I stop people when I see them drinking and driving. I say, if you get in that car with that can of beer open, I am going to call the police and turn you in. And I get threatened and yelled at and cussed and everything else, and I say, look, you can say anything you want. I'm just telling you, I have to drive on this road, my kids drive on this road, and before I let you run over one of my kids, I am going to report you to the police and have you arrested. And they can threaten me, they can beat me up, they can do whatever they want, but my job is to do what's right, and God's job is to take care of the details. But an awful lot of Christians have got a fear of man, and the Bible says the fear of man bringeth a snare. What we need to do is say, God, what do you want? I'll do it. And some people, in their job, have a chance to make a little extra money by doing something wrong. Hey, your job is to do what's right. God's job is to take care of the money. You just do what's right. And that little boy at 13 years of age got a bad habit because he was afraid of his friends instead of God. Job 14, who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible round about. You know, some reference Bibles say this thing is a whale or a whirlpool. Whirlpools don't have teeth. Check it out, you'll see. His scales are his pride. Scales? Whales don't have scales. They're a mammal, have hair, they give milk, 2,000 pounds a day. Utterly ridiculous. His scales are his pride, shut up together as with a close seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. This guy's got scales you can't poke a spear through. They are joined one to another, they stick together that they cannot be sundered. By his neesings. His what? His neesings. You know, when the King James translators came across this word in the Hebrew, it's the word atish. And it means blowing air out of your nose. They got together and said, fellas, how are we going to translate this word? We don't have an English word that means blowing air out of your nose. They said, well, the only thing to do then is to make up a brand new word. It's kind of like sneezing, but it's not really sneezing. So they made up a brand new word, neesings. You're looking at it. Only place it ever appears in the Bible. Never before, never again. By his neesings, when he blows air out of his nose, a light doth shine. What? When he blows air out of his nose, a light shines. That's what it says. And his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke. Now that's no big deal. I've seen deacons do that on the front steps of churches. As out of a seething pot or cauldron, his breath kindleth coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. Brother Hovind, you say, is this talking about a fire-breathing dragon?